Hi, I'm Jill Tyler, and today I'm going to add to our discussion about public speaking by specifically addressing our supporting information. That's the evidence that we insert into our argument in order to persuade our audience of the point that we want them to understand. So just a quick review, first of all, on supporting material. Supporting material is the product that we have after our research, after we have very carefully studied our research. Once we have developed responsible knowledge, then we begin to prepare for the public speaking situation. Remember, the public speaking situation is a relationship between the speaker, the audience, and the topic. So whenever you're making decisions about what you need to do in public speaking, you're always deciding, what do we need to do in order to honor the audience, the topic, and the speaker, and to strengthen the relationship there. The speaker's always working for change, either to improve a social situation, to persuade or motivate the audience to take some kind of action or to adopt a belief, or together to celebrate a shared value. And always, the audience is the group of listeners that can make change happen. They're the group of listeners that can make your message effective. But even the friendliest of audiences will not make your message effective unless you give them reasons to, unless you give them all of the information that they need to commit to the change that you're trying to make. So we look at supporting evidence. There are several types of supporting evidence, and I'm going to talk about each one. I'll give you some examples. I'll give you some explanations of what they are. First of all, definition. A definition makes clear what you're talking about. It's a powerful way to really frame the issue for your audience. So, in borrowing some examples from previous speeches, let me talk about the idea of immigration, okay? We can talk about an immigrant, or we can talk about illegal aliens, or we can talk about refugees, or we can talk about undocumented residents. An immigrant is a person who comes to live permanently in another country. A refugee is a person who has been forced to leave their country to escape war, persecution, or a natural disaster. So that definition should come early on in your speech. You should be very clear about what it is you're talking about and make sure that you and your audience share the same definition. Second type of supporting material, an example. An example is a specific case that illustrates or describes or represents concepts. It can be brief or it can be really broadly extended. It can be a real occurrence or it can be a hypothetical occurrence. It aids your audience in understanding by making concepts and ideas much more concrete. So, going on, an example might be, Livia is a beautiful little girl with dark, dancing eyes and a quick musical laugh. You would never know by looking at her the struggles she has seen in her native country during her short life. That example makes the idea of children who are immigrants all the more vivid and the easier for your audience to picture and understand. Third type of supporting evidence, a narrative or an illustration. These are stories. Again, these stories can be real or they can be hypothetical. They can be short or they can be drawn out. Some speeches really constitute a really long narrative, a really long story. Stories are great. There isn't an audience in the world who doesn't relax when a speaker says, "Let me tell you a story." And a story can generate interest, can help the audience to identify with what you're talking about, and it also arouses emotion. Going back to our example of the speech about immigration, I might tell you, when the Morales family chose to leave Nicaragua, their first step was to collect the nearly $10,000 it would cost to pay someone to smuggle them across the border. Another very effective type of supporting material is to take two ideas and compare them. A comparison always looks for the similarities between two ideas. A contrast always looks for what is different between two ideas. These also can really help the audience to understand and to identify with the ideas that you're discussing. For example, a comparison might be, these immigrants are looking for a better life, much like our ancestors who immigrated from Europe and Asia in the early 20th century. Now, one of the most popular types of supporting material are good old facts. Those are actual events, dates, times, people involved, places that can be independently verified. They're very trustworthy. A subset of facts are statistics. Statistics are facts that are expressed numerically, again, demonstrating relationships, this many of these type. It summarizes information, it demonstrates proof. Numbers are very persuasive to most audiences. They're very memorable. So for example, I might tell you that 50,000 children have crossed the US-Mexican border in the last 3 years. Or I might say, according to the Center for Immigration Studies, last year 410,000 illegal aliens were removed from the United States, and nearly half of them, about 43%, had been arrested for violent crimes. And finally, the last type of supporting evidence that you will find useful are statements of authority or statements of testimony. Authority is going to firsthand knowledge, to firsthand opinions, accounts, stories that are offered by people who have been there, who have actually have experience with the idea. It does a lot to help provide credibility. For example, a Custom and Border Patrol agent, Michael Smith, said, with the resources we have now, there is absolutely no way U.S. officers can patrol every inch of the U.S.-Mexican border. Or in lay testimony, we would be talking about a person who has an experience, may not be an expert in the field, but has experience that they can speak of very vividly and with great credibility. For example, Livia's mother said their midnight crossing of the Rio Grande was terrifying. So those are several types, really great, credible types of supporting material, and some of the circumstances that you can use them for to really have the best impact on your audience. Definitions, examples, illustrations, stories, narratives, facts and statistics, as well as statements of authority and lay testimony. The best messages really have a combination of all of these types of supporting material. So when you are doing your research and when you are beginning to plan your speech, think carefully about what types of supporting evidence you'll use in order to persuade your audience.